Johnny Wrestling, Johnny Gargano, and you are listening to the Bob Culture Podcast.
Nothing between the lines of the page or out of time. Forgiveness is for angels, but this angel fell out of line. Lost in no second chance or redemption can be found. 'Cause you can't have the devil and the devil is running you down.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into a very special Invictus Pro Wrestling edition of the BCP, brought to you by our shameless promo friends at Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore, located at Englishtown Flea Market, Saturdays and Sundays from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. They are also located online. Get your wrestling stuff, your G.I. Joes, X-Men, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Basically, this room is just filled with stuff from Funkenstein because I am a grown man child. Heather and Dan, we can't thank you enough for sponsoring the show. Check them out, Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore, on socials, on eBay, and on their website, FunkensteinWrestlingSuperstore.com. That being said, now that the bills are paid, please welcome to the show, ahead of his show, it's going to be this Sunday, Invictus Magnitude. Let them fight. It's going to be 4 p.m. this Sunday at the Mecca of professional wrestling, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey, 106 Bergen Ave. You know where it is. Please welcome in one of the head honchos, the very handsome Mr. I'm going to say it right. Mr. Alex Accetta of Invictus Pro Wrestling. How are you, sir? Welcome in, man. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me, Rob. Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, dude. Lots to talk about, man. Let's get the shameless promo out of the way here. We got Magnitude coming up. It's going to be this Sunday. Very excited. I think I'm going to be there in some form or fashion. There's so many things that I am excited about. There's so many things I want to ask you. But to me, the first thing that pops out is, besides why are you so handsome, is Goons versus TakeOver, man. I don't want to bury the lead. Is that your booking, man? How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, so within Invictus, this rivalry goes back to June of this year. In June, we did a crossover show with Test of Strength Wrestling up in Connecticut, our first show up in Connecticut. And at that show, Jay Bougie and Killian McMurphy were both in a 6-way scramble match. And at one point, I can't even tell you what happened, even though if you go back and watch the footage, I'm literally standing right there. But PJ Savage was at ringside, obviously supporting Mr. Bougie, and Killian at one point just took a cheap shot out of nowhere at PJ Savage. It escalated into this kind of like Scooby-Doo almost chase around the venue. They're going in and out of doors and through curtains and shit. Dust, of course, got involved as he does. And the tension's kind of been there ever since. But even if that incident hadn't occurred, I think it was only a matter of time before these two groups collided. I mean, just when you're talking about, two factions that have been influential in the Northeast indie scene over the last, really over the last year or so, TakeOver and the Goons are the first ones that come to mind.
Yeah. Very well said. And let's be real, Dust is a national treasure. That man is brilliant.
Oh man, it was a big W for all of us this week, this past week. That number 500, that was clutch.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think he called in to Bust It Open to talk. I may or may not have heard about that, but I think he called. I think Bubba Ray called, or Bully Ray called him out. So that's very interesting.
He did. Dust is just drinking the tears of his haters from a golden chalice this week. It's phenomenal.
Loving every minute of it, I'm sure, knowing him. Let's talk about it. We got a championship match. I think I'm contractually obligated at this time to talk about it. The Vicious One going back for what she says is her, what is it, Invictus Women's World Championship, the Women's Championship, correct me if I'm wrong. Edith took it from her. Vicky came back from that injury. I got the hit list behind me right there. I think Edith's name is on
Oh, yeah,
here.
there it is.
She's been
Yep, number
crossing them out.
2.
Yeah, she's on there. She
Yep.
got the ISPW from Gabby. So she's on a mission right now. She's more determined than ever. It's very, very interesting. You love to see it, man. I got to thank you, man, for you guys ribbed me real good at the one show. I had no idea she was coming out. That was awesome. But that was very cool of you. You guys got me real good. I was literally speechless and doing commentary. Yeah. But the fact that it was cool to see when she was coming back, we put a lot of thought in that, like how we were going to do this and like, almost like that Kill Bill style kind of list. And it was a bunch of ideas that came together. And a lot of the promoters really bit and played along with that. And I got to thank you for doing that, man. And thank you for making this match.
No, of course. I mean, the booking that happens organically like that is my favorite. Because I mean, you it's just like you said, you can't force the emotional weight that comes with that kind of like redemption arc, and it's just anytime something, unforeseen happens, like with Vicky's injury, immediately my mind starts going, how can we spin this? Yeah. And how can we make some money off of this? So, I mean, yeah, everything just lined up just right. She had that big surprise return at TakeOver versus STP, back in May. And in doing so, I mean, not in doing so, but clearly this has been a bad year for injuries, because shortly after that happened, Riley Shepard, who technically was the number 1 contender after that match, she is now out with an injury, which places Vicky back in that number 1 contender spot. So things, I don't know, it seems like somebody might have been, some higher power might have been watching out for the vicious one. So it's going to be a really good match. I mean, to me, when I think about like what my vision is for Invictus, I think no other match on the card better encapsulates it than Edith versus Vicky and that rivalry. Because, and I've said this to a few other people before, and everyone I say this to is always like, oh, I never thought about that, but you're totally right. And I'm curious what you think about this.
Okay.
On the independent wrestling scene, and this is particularly true in the Northeast, but probably of other areas as well, there's 2 very distinct camps, 2 very distinct groups. There's the local favorites, who tend to have, right, they don't travel as much, but they don't need to, because they've spent many years cultivating this local fan base. And those people tend to have a more old school, conservative approach to the business. And then on the other side, you have the Twitter darlings, the IWTV favorites, maybe the people who are a bit more progressive, a bit more flashy, right, in their outlook. And what I want to do at Invictus is take the best of both of those schools, both of those groups, and put them together and create matchups that you're not going to see anywhere else. And to me, the Vicky and Edith feud is like the perfect encapsulation of that. You have Vicky on one end, you have she eats, sleeps, and breathes everything New Jersey wrestling, right? She has said herself she's inspired by those old school divas, Lita, things like that. And then on the other side, you have Edith Surreal, who, is, people have started calling her the face of the company, because every time IWTV puts up an Invictus graphic, they always throw her on there, right? More like a technical style, come through the Wrestle Factory. So you just have 2 very opposing forces coming together. So I'm very excited about this match. I'm sure you are as well. And I'm sure the fans at home watching are.
Yeah, I knew when I met you, and I've only met you a few times, and the first time I met you, I'm like, dude, because like I wasn't really like I was never really around Invictus, but I always kept up with everything. I loved a lot of stuff Brandon Walker was doing with you guys, man. I'm a big fan, and when I met you, man, I just love I kind of love your like philosophy, man, and even you saying that right now, man, I get what you're saying like wholeheartedly. I always in life, I try not to like categorize or generalize. Like I never really see the world. I feel like we're always given a choice, this or this. And I've always seen like the gray area or the in between, man. But I don't want to be a hypocrite, but I kind of get what you're saying. Like, Like there's that old school, and again, it has a lot to do with how you were brought up, who trained you,
100%.
who networking. And I think there is a very much an IWTV crowd, and that's not a bad thing or a good thing or anything like that, man. It's a great place to be. If you're an independent wrestler, that would be one of my first goals, is to get on IWTV as much as possible. And there definitely is that like you said, that IWTV group, which is awesome to be a part of, because you could see where a lot of national companies like pick from that IWTV crop, man. And I love the blurring of the different, groups, as you put it, man. It's very interesting. I always thought of it as I guess it'll be 2 years behind the curtain now this October for me. And I always, I just learn from people. I'm still new, so I try not to have too many opinions. Like as a journalist, I do, but like as a worker, like I just try to be a sponge and observe and learn. And to me, like there's an old school thought, which I don't always agree with. Like I like the more forward thinking. I like the more outside the box, against the grain stuff, like a lot of stuff the goons do. And there's a lot of people coming up like that. And I feel like you're one of those too, that think outside the box a little bit, man. So it's very, very interesting, man. I like the way your brain works. Now, are you one of the only guys, at Invictus? Cause there's a couple of you guys, right? I met some of them at the Wrestle Bash.
There's there's a board of directors, we like to call it. But
I like that.
Yeah, I'm for lack of a better term, kind of like the face of the company. I do a lot of the podcasts and the appearances and stuff. But there's Nick, who's the EVP. He's the one you would have met at Wrestle Bash. There's Bronco Bronson, who is the big fella who is also at Wrestle Bash.
Nice
he's a grizzled outlaw mud show veteran, of the Southern Territories back in the 70s and 80s. He's not actually, that's kayfabe, but he works the merch table, and he does a lot of like the marketing stuff. And then just a handful. I mean, that's the nice thing about Invictus, is it really is like a community. It's a team. So, Ryan Peterson, our ring announcer, he's involved in some backstage stuff as well. Eric Novak, The Answer ASC, the host of the Independent Epicenter, both of them, their work backstage, they're also involved as well. So it is very much, I believe in the saying, it takes a village. We all kind of have our defined roles. But yeah, me and Nick and I are probably the two major players.
I love that you got, and I know we're talking like deep in philosophy and stuff, but I'm appreciative of it, because I'm always big on like dot connects and like things from social media, or like I'm all about like the not even cross promotional, but just some sort of consistency, amongst promotions, heel face, whatever it is, man. And I feel like you guys do a great job paying attention to that. Like I said, what you embraced with what Vicky was doing with her comeback, that was so cool to see. But also like you guys embraced like TakeOver, I don't always agree with PJ at IWA. He's always getting involved in like every single match, man. Like he rings the bell. He's the referee. Like he's probably selling popcorn. Like they literally hijack these shows, these guys, man. And I give them credit. They grabbed the bull by the horns. They weren't happy with where they were. They made a statement. They literally took over many organizations, man. They've been a part of some great shows that, you helped book, and thank you for that. But you really embrace like what's going on. Do you try to keep up with everything like amongst social media and other promotions as best you can?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's being active in New Jersey, which it's no secret. The market's a little bit saturated here.
Thanks for running on a Sunday, by the way.
Yeah, that's why, part of the reason why.
It's not the third Saturday. Thanks.
Yeah. No, but it's true. I mean, you're fighting an uphill battle if you're trying to go against the grain, and trying to, I'm not going to say present something else, but present something that directly goes against whatever the established status quo is. And what I mean by that is, if you have, if a fan is easily able to buy tickets to 2 shows in a weekend, and you have the same person as a heel on Saturday night and a baby face on Sunday night, and the shows are 20 miles apart, you know what I mean? You're
yeah. Exactly.
You're insulting the fans' intelligence. So it's and I know because we've tried and it hasn't worked, right? I'm thinking, PJ for his first, I would say, half a year in Invictus, he was not part of TakeOver. He was part of Sin, which was an Invictus group.
Mm-hmm.
And they were feuding with TakeOver for a while, and they had a great feud.
I remember that.
Culminated in the bloodiest match in Invictus history so far. But by the time the feud reached its end, we were sitting there backstage going, "What are we doing?" Because PJ's fighting against TakeOver at our shows, and he's part of them at every other show.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're like salmon swimming upstream here. So eventually the decision was made that he would leave Sin and join TakeOver. And that was in April. And join TakeOver like within the Invictus canon, so that it's consistent across the board. I mean, I think, like I said, I don't know. I think it is an important thing to look at if you're from a creative perspective in order to keep the fans engaged.
I love that not to say that you actually care, but like you give it that much care and thought, man, and connecting I'm huge on connecting the dots. I don't know how many times I've said it. And like you said, you don't want to insult the fans' intelligence. Like if I'm a fan of PJ Savage and I'm keeping track of everything PJ Savage is doing, you want it to be consistent. You want to go on that character arc. You want to go on that ride, man. So I appreciate you doing that. Alex, I want to put you over a little bit. Here come the cliche questions, but I want to get to know you a little bit, bro. Like you seem to have a really good mind and production. I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, man. Have you had experience in writing, directing, producing? Do you do anything outside of wrestling like that?
So yeah, I am a writer. I have my master's degree in writing.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. My MFA, that was like my COVID project.
Congrats, man.
During lockdown. Thank you.
Good for you.
But I mean that even though, again, like you said, it's not directly related to wrestling, it does lend itself a lot to the character development side of things and storyline. And I always like to not challenge the wrestlers, but when I'm talking about what our plans are and what are our visions, I always try to tie it back to like, what's your motivation? What's your character's motivation, right?
Yes.
And it can't just be, oh, I want to be the best, because we all want to be the best, and the best means different things to different people. So what is your clear, specific, tangible motivation for doing what you're doing? Because right, like a pull apart brawl is cool and everything. It's a cool visual, it's dramatic, but unless there's that kind of emotional sense of purpose behind it, that's going to fizzle out. You know what I mean? It's not sustainable. So yeah, that carried over a little bit into wrestling for sure. As far as like how I broke into the business, is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love your answer already, man. Congrats on the Masters. That's huge,
Thank
man.
you.
I love like your thought process. But yeah, I mean, that was next on the docket too, man. Like obviously, the cliche one, but like what's your connection to wrestling? How did this all start?
Yeah. Well, I started as a fan, as we all do. I started watching it when I was second or third grade, maybe, little kid. But I was also like, from an early age, I was very honest with myself. Like I was not an athletically gifted child whatsoever. Played Pee Wee soccer for like 2 months and that was it.
Yeah.
So I knew that I was never going to be a wrestler myself. But I was very interested in the creative side, again, because I was, a creative kid, and the backstage side. So I was cognizant that if I was ever going to get into the wrestling business, I would want to do it from the backstage side. Now, as you could probably attest to, that pathway of getting into the back end of the business. I'm not going to say that it's harder than being a wrestler, of course, I'm not going to even presume that because they the stuff they put themselves through physically
The
is
body,
untouchable. Yeah. But what I will say is that it's not as linear, that path. You know, you want to be a wrestler, you find a school, you train, you start taking bookings, and you go from there. With anything outside of the ring, it's kind of just networking and paying dues and talking to this person, hoping they can introduce you to this person, and eventually just getting some kind of spot. So flash forward to after college, I was starting to get back into, you know, going to indie shows, because my first job out of college was fucking miserable. I was teaching middle school in the Bronx, which was terrible. So I used to just go to indie shows to blow off steam on the weekends. And I was on the mailing list for Evolve Wrestling. I used to go to all their shows whenever they'd come to Queens.
Evolve, yeah. And
there was an email that I got one day about a creative seminar from Gabe Sapolsky, who, you know, if you're a fan of indie wrestling, I mean, he would be the guy to learn from. So I applied. I sent my little, you know, personal statement to him, and, you know, paid the fee, accepted me, and that was my first time going back into a locker room at an independent show, because they did it like in real time. Like they just brought this group of people back into the locker room while he was running a show. And just, we were kind of learning on the go. And since then, a lot of the people who were booked on that show have since gone on to WWE and AEW. Walter was there. I don't call him Gunther. But you know, Matt Riddle, Joey Janela, there were a bunch of people were at that show. So that was when I kind of knew that I wanted to do something, you know, that I wanted to do this. So I kept on working, just as basically a gopher for Evolve, from then pretty much up until it folded. Every time they were in New York, I'd show up. I did ring crew. I worked the door. I drove wrestlers to and from the airport. And Gabe and Trevin, the ambassador, the announcer, they became my mentors in the business. And then once we got the crowd in and seated, they used to just let me sit in Gorilla. And I had a little gray notebook, and I would just write down notes on the commentary and the booking and the production and everything, because eventually my goal was to start my own promotion. But at the time, that was like a far out goal. And then when Evolve folded, I was like, oh, guess my plans are getting fast tracked a little bit, because I didn't really have any other connections to any other promotions at that point. So, yeah. And then COVID hit.
Changes everything.
Yeah.
Hey, you got that Masters, dude. Yeah, I loved Evolve, man. I love going there, and they had some cool ties with NXT, like later on, a lot of the stars, man. And I loved Evolve. Some of the venues they ran didn't have. As soon as those shows were over, it was get out of there. We had an interview lined up with Shotzi after one of the shows, man, which was so cool, and she was down to do it. And the security guards kicked us out.
Was that at Laboon?
I wasn't gonna say the name of it, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, dude, Laboon was.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why they had to clear people out was because to get the ring in and out of there, you got to go up a flight of stairs and then around that really tight corner, around two tight corners. Yeah. So they wasn't anything personal, although that security guard was.
You know, I didn't even say
he was a battle axe.
I didn't even say it was a security guard. You know exactly.
No, I know the guy.
I just exactly.
I like that he was
disrespect, but
he was the first and only guy I ever heard that like unironically called other men king. Like
really?
He'd be like, you got to move it, king. Like, and I just always thought, I was like, wow. I was like, I want to be mad at you, but you made me feel so important. Thank you.
Yeah. I just remembered, and again, not trying to knock anyone, but like I just remember we were interviewing Mike Donovan, and he's literally like people are clearing out, and he's literally just standing right, like there's so many other people in the building. He's just standing right next to us, watching the whole interview. As soon as we're done, and Shotzi had already agreed to do it. We're gonna go over to Shotzi. Nope. Well, we're pressed, but nope. Like, oh man, but I do miss Evolve. That being said, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody or a business.
And you know, the thing is that a lot of the other workers that I met, like doing ring crew, and helping out at the shows, they eventually became the core of the Invictus roster.
Yeah.
So,
really?
Became Leroy, Wrecking Ball, Legursky, guys like that.
Yeah, and
they're first met at Evolve. Yeah,
they're killing it right now, man. It's
cool.
So cool to see you got a great roster. Now I'm still newer to Evolve, man. Is Alex Accetta ever going to be like, or are you already like an in-ring, like calling the shots, like promo kind of guy?
No, I was open to it. Like that was kind of my goal when I was with Evolve, was to try to pivot to into like either commentary or, you know, in-ring or something. But I've done all of those things before for Invictus, but that was like more out of necessity.
Yeah.
But I'm personally, and this isn't me knocking on anyone,
Yeah.
I'm just personally not a fan of like promoters that put themselves in the spotlight.
Right. I get what you mean.
Promoter's place or a booker's place is, you know, heard but not seen. You know what I mean? I think it should really be about the performers.
Yeah, I agree. Unless, you know, you have like a talent who's doing like, you know, Moljo is the new GM of Invictus, you know, that kind of a thing. You know, like, I'm sorry.
Bring that up. Oh,
yeah. He's writing it down. Who we kidding? No, I'm just kidding, man. But I get what you're saying, man, and I appreciate your mindset, man. Man, so much to ask you. Cliche one here, man. Invictus is really, really cool. You got a solid fan base. I love like your booking, and I love like the roster. You have kind of like your core, but you keep it fresh, and you keep up with everything, man. What are the goals for the promotion long term?
Goals. I mean, I would love to get Invictus to a point of being, you know, kind of like where Evolve was pre, like a touring super indie level. You know, a lot of people think like, oh, I want to get a TV deal. Like that's kind of secondary to me. I think especially in today's day and age, the streaming era, you know, I think that's kind of secondary. But yeah, I would love to just continue to cultivate our fan base, grow into something like, for me, I think like, you know, the level that like GCW is at right now, or like I was a big fan of like the UK indie scene. So like Progress I was a huge fan of Progress when they were. I hate that I keep referring to Progress in the past tense when it's still very much.
It is still, promotion, yeah. I get what you mean.
It's just, it's not. It's a shell of its former self, and they're like clawing back. But you know, when Progress was at its peak, like something similar to that, like commanding this very massive fan base, but still maintaining that kind of like gritty DIY vibe. That would be my vision for Invictus, and just continue to, you know, expand, bring in new talent. I'd love to get some international talent in eventually.
Love it.
But yeah.
Dig it, Alex. Last one from me, man. All respect for your time, man, and thanks for making the time. I know you're doing like tons of media and press today, bro. You're busy, man. What are the goals for Alex Accetta moving forward, man? What are the goals for you, man? Is it, you know, we talk to the wrestlers and we've heard all the answers. It's not just to get signed. We've heard people say they want to open a school, they want to travel, like whatever it is. How about for you, man? Is it get that tap on the shoulder to be a producer somewhere national? Is it just to, you know, stay local? What's the dream for you, bro?
That would be great. But it's not really at the forefront of my mind. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm pretty content with where I'm at right now, man, within wrestling. You know, I like, you know, I do the shows for me pretty much. It's something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy the community. I enjoy, interacting with the fans. I enjoy the product that we've built and all the great people that it brings me in contact with. So within wrestling, besides those goals that I just stated for Invictus are pretty much the goals for me as well within wrestling. I have other aspirations, in my personal and professional life that, if I let that wrestling ball get any bigger,
I get it.
It'll throw off the balance. So I think I'm in a good place with wrestling.
Hey,
My goal is with the workers, the people that I built up these like mutually invested relationships with. My goal is to get them to the next level. That's what, if I can point to someone on TV and say, hey, I had a hand in creating that, like that'll be enough for me.
Love that, man. Very well said. Perfect answer. And again, shameless promo, man. We got September 25th, this Sunday, the Mecca of Pro Wrestling, 106 Bergen Ave, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. We got Invictus presents Magnitude. I'll be up there. The Vicious One will be there. We got Speedball Mike Bailey, Gabriel Scott. We got the Goons. We got the Savage One. We got the very handsome Alex. Alex, where can everyone get tickets? Shameless promo. Follow you. Follow Invictus. All that good stuff.
Yeah, our Eventbrite ticket page. That link is you can find that on all of our social media. Twitter, it's at Invictus Pro WRE1. Everything else is just at Invictus Pro Wrestling. Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Definitely only a handful of front row tickets left. So if you're looking to sit front row, do not wait. Those will sell out, whether in advance or day of. But definitely hop on those tickets. We hope to see you all there and looking forward to celebrating 2 years, baby.
Can't wait. Congrats on 2 years, man. Well deserved. And Alex, thanks so much for making the time. This is long overdue, man. Next time we do it, we'll definitely do it in person, man. And just looking forward to the show and continued success to you moving forward, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Anytime, bro. And guys, like we always say here on the BCP, everyone stay safe, stay positive, take care.